Scrapper Duncan's cooking in the cave. Well, the thing is to weigh the mushrooms, so I'm looking for 400 grams of mushrooms. I've got this handy half mushroom prepared here. We'll call that 400 grams. Not so bothered about how I slice them. They're going to go through a blender later on. Well, opinion seems to vary as to what you should put in your mushroom soup, but I guess it's your soup, so you do what you fucking want, right? I'm going to include a large onion. Next up, I think we'll have 2 or 3 cloves of garlic. Always seems a bit fiddly, garlic. Well worth it though. I've no idea whether it's true that it cleans the blood, but we've been saying it since the Middle Ages, so no sense stopping now. All the food odds and ends, the scraps are of course going to the compost bin. Chopping it up to make it a bit easier to fry with. Everything's going to go through the blender anyway. This is just to make it easier to work with before the blender gets going. And we want about 100 millilitres of whipped cream, because I live in a kind of fairly backward part of the world. I couldn't get any of that stuff, so I've bought double cream, which has settled. I don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but I'm going to make do. I have no idea whether that's 100 millilitres or what. I couldn't really care less at this point. Well, for reasons I don't really understand, I'm going to use some margarine and some olive oil, even though the margarine is based on olive oil. It's actually made out of olive oil. And here's the oil I'm going to use. It turns out it's not olive oil, it's rapeseed oil. Well, I didn't have any olive oil, so I'm using Sussex Gold extra virgin rapeseed oil. Don't mind giving that a product placement, sold by Infinity Foods in Brighton. So we're just going to pour some of that into the pan. Just add the onion. When you're making this dish at home, I think you should use a bit less oil with a bit less margarine. You know, it's not very good for you to eat that much. It doesn't necessarily improve the meal, it might well spoil it. But you know, I've got other things to think about, like holding the camera, trying to talk at the same time. I'm just showing you the basic idea. Don't get too hung up on the details, eh? So, throwing that away on a pretty hot heat, as hot as I can muster. Next up, I add the garlic. Well, there's the garlic on the back of the wooden spoon. Couldn't really show it being added because I've only got so many hands. Not for me one of those expensive tripods or the wages of a second cameraman. So in it goes. Oh, and boy, does that smell nice. Most people will tell you that you should use a small potato, and I'm going to do that. They also say that you should take the skin off, but you know, we all know that all the goodness in a potato is just under the skin, so I can't really see the point of taking the skin off. And by the time it's all been fried and cooked and blended, not going to make any difference, is it? So I'm leaving the skin on. Potato just gives the soup a bit of body. Doesn't really serve any other purpose, but it is an important purpose. I'm just cutting it up so that it can get cooked a bit quicker. I've added a little bit of salt, you can hardly see that, and a fair bit of black pepper. Seems to be popular with everyone, God knows why. Just messes up my insides, to be honest. Anyway, that's what I've done. Now the received wisdom seems to be that at this point, when everything is, I think I'll just turn that down a little bit, when everything is starting to change colour or stick, basically it's starting to look like it's quite cooked. The received wisdom is that at this point you add your carefully prepared stock. I don't have any stock, so I'm going to make it in the pan. Yeah, that's right, make the stock in the pan, not that complicated. And I'm going to do that by adding some water. That was nearly a pint of water there. Just going to give it a little stir. Pick the bits up that have got stuck to the bottom. And I'm going to add some bouillon. I mean, you know, let's face it, what meal would be complete without it? This is the reduced salt bouillon, which I think means you can probably use a bit more. I'm just going to add that to the liquid, like this, and you know, this bouillon and water, that actually is stock. There's a lot less fuss than making it up first. That is probably way too much, so I'm going to just add a bit more and then stop there. Bear in mind, this meal should feed about 7 or 8 people. Well, I think I've made a mistake actually. I should have started cooking the mushrooms a little bit before I put the stock in. I can't say I really understand the science of this. Science, you say? I mean, it's cooked, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, I can't really see any way out of it now. I can't see how I'm going to get this water out and return this pan to its earlier state, and I can't see myself cooking with another pan, so I'm going to just put the mushrooms in as they are. And here are the mushrooms, which I prepared earlier. So let's see how many of them can fit in. Perhaps it's time for me to buy a bigger pan. It's hard to believe that I could feed the 7 or 8 people that I claimed I could out of this pan. I'm going to just stir them in a little bit. At this point I'd like to reveal that I actually once sent a letter to Delia Smith. I watched, back in the day when I had a television, I watched one of her shows. I thought it was horrible actually, it's just horrible. Like a patronising kind of show about how to make vegetarian food. I mean, actually looking at this, look at my culinary skills. Perhaps I should have written her a letter of gratitude, but instead I sent her a letter saying that the meal that she made on that occasion looked like a plate of sick. And she sent me a nice letter back. or at least the BBC did, saying, thanking me for my letter, noting my comments, and saying that they would remain on the file. So I guess that means no TV job for me then, hey? I'm going to let this mixture boil away for about 10 minutes. There's all sorts of mushroom recipes online, mushroom soup recipes. Most of them are a bit poncy if you ask me. They talk about the A-list mushrooms and the B-list mushrooms. As far as I'm concerned, there's only two categories of mushrooms. The ones that are nutritious and the ones that produce neurological excitement. I suppose you could have another couple of categories, couldn't you? Fresh ones and ones that are going off. But, you know, quite frankly, I think people in this country need to pull their fingers out a little bit. I don't know how bloody lucky they are. Well, it's been simmering away now for a little while, so I'm going to transfer it into another pan so that I can get the blender to work on it. I'm going to use a handheld blender, which I affectionately know as the Whizzy machine. So I'm just going to pour it in. Let's hope it all goes in. Curiously, the pan looks a bit cleaner than when I started. So much for the dishwasher, eh? So here it is, here's the Whizzy machine. Seems to be working. Let's try to turn it into the kind of soup that we recognise from the industrial age. It doesn't take very long. Pretty soon you've got this kind of sort of fairly well mashed up texture. It was tempting to leave it as it is. I think I will. A few rough bits around. Right, yeah, I'll leave it at that, I think. Well, I think this looks alright actually. As soup, I think it'll be fine as it is. I think in future I would leave it at this point. Probably just add some garnish, maybe put some spinach in it. Oh, look at that, a couple of nice pieces of mushroom that have got away from the blender. But I went to the trouble of buying the cream, so I'm going to put it in. And here is that dreadful substance. The devil's own smegma. I've still got it on a low heat. Turn it up just a tiny bit. I'm just going to stir this cream in. Make sure all the cheesy lumps have been worked out. And there is the final mixture. That's about half of what I made. So obviously I was being somewhat disingenuous earlier when I said that it would feed 7 or 8 people. It would do, but they'd have to be not very hungry and prepared to only have a very small meal each. I've stirred in some fresh spinach with it because no meal is complete without its greens. And there you have it, Scrapper Duncan's mushroom soup with spinach.